The tragic tale of Brighty The Burro, fire and restoration efforts. A beloved symbol of the Grand Canyon may have been lost forever in the devastating Dragon Bravo fire. The fate of Brighty The Burro, a historic sculpture honoring a real-life donkey who roamed the canyon in the early 1900s, hangs in the balance. While the full extent of the damage remains unconfirmed, an image shared by the Grand Canyon Historical Society suggests the bronze burro, which has greeted hikers at the Grand Canyon Lodge for over 5 decades, may have fallen victim to the flames. Many, like Lauren Heffer, who cherishes childhood memories of Brighty, are holding on to hope that the sculpture can be restored if found. She plans to auction off collectibles to support rebuilding efforts on the North Rim. But here's where it gets controversial. Should replicas of lost art be made, or is it crucial we preserve originals? And this is the part most people miss: the emotional impact of losing such treasured symbols can be just as devastating as the physical destruction. What do you think? Should Brighty rise from the ashes anew if all is lost, or is some art simply irreplaceable? An explosive Grand Canyon wildfire, devastation, questions, and recovery. A raging wildfire in Grand Canyon's North Rim has rocked a community, shattered beloved landmarks, and left everyone asking, could this have been prevented? When a bolt of lightning ignited a seemingly minor blaze on July 4 in the far-flung forests of Grand Canyon National Park, few foresaw the coming devastation, or the soul-searching debate it would provoke. But here's where it gets controversial: did experts' efforts to harness nature ultimately set the stage for disaster? Fire officials initially chose a strategy familiar to many national parks. Instead of immediately fighting the flames, they opted for a control and contain approach. This technique, used for reducing built-up forest debris and preventing future infernos, seemed justified. Rainfall in previous weeks had left the ground damp, and with the summer monsoon expected soon, it appeared sensible to let a low-intensity fire clear the underbrush. However, as anyone who studies wildfire knows, conditions can shift fast. Just a week later, confidence turned to panic. On July 11, the fire breached containment lines, roaring to life with stunning speed. Its size multiplied tenfold in a single day, a frightening escalation captured in the words of a National Park Service firefighter. The sound was like a freight train bearing down on us. By July 12, the situation spiraled out of control. Within a day, approximately 70 structures, including the iconic Grand Canyon Lodge, numerous visitor cabins, and essential staff buildings, were reduced to smoldering ruins. Social media and news outlets were flooded with haunting images: plumes of smoke, blackened timbers, and the North Rim's skyline forever altered. Suddenly, the decision not to extinguish the blaze immediately was under scrutiny from around the globe. Nearly 2 weeks after the first spark, the so-called Dragon Bravo fire had consumed close to 12,000 acres, only 2% contained, as more than 750 firefighters struggled to subdue its relentless advance. For the tight-knit community that calls the North Rim home, the disaster struck deep. Known for its tranquility and boasting just a fraction of the Grand Canyon's annual tourism compared to the crowded South Rim, this area has drawn devoted fans for generations. The abrupt closure of the North Rim for the rest of the season left hundreds of national park and concession employees without homes or livelihoods and cancelled untold family vacations. And this is the part most people miss: beyond jobs and buildings, there's a profound sense of emotional loss, a sanctuary lost, memories erased, a beloved landmark gone. The tragedy takes on even greater resonance with the destruction of the Grand Canyon Lodge, revered by many as the heart and soul of the North Rim. Trying to describe the loss of the lodge is nearly impossible, shared one longtime park employee online. It wasn't just a building, it was our home. Losing it feels like losing a part of ourselves. So how exactly did this happen? As the dust settles, questions swirl about the logic and timing of the initial fire management decisions, and whether different choices could have spared so much destruction. Retrospect has turned the earlier decision to let the flames burn into a lightning rod for criticism. Yet, a firefighter who responded to the early stages, and who has requested anonymity, insists, at the time, it appeared to be a logical call. For several days, the fire crawled predictably, smoldering at the pace managers anticipated. Suddenly, on July 11th, humidity levels dropped brutally. Winds shifted, driving embers beyond control lines, and the fire raced downhill, like a gasoline-soaked match. Within hours, the fire's footprint leapt from 120 acres to 1,500. Meanwhile, 500 visitors had already been evacuated days prior due to another fire burning near the park, the White Sage Fire. As the remaining residents and staff were evacuated and the crew scrambled to shield buildings from the flames, a stark reality set in: they lacked enough equipment and personnel to mount a full defense. Some resources, including 2 fire engines and a bulldozer, had been dispatched to the separate White Sage operation. Critical aerial firefighting support didn't arrive until the next day. As night fell, the fire surrounded the crew, forcing them to shelter in the North Rim Fire Station. Another team of firefighters found themselves encircled on a helipad, faced by 100-foot walls of fire. "We truly believe we wouldn't make it," recalled one firefighter, describing the chaos as propane tanks exploded and homes succumbed to flames. The North Rim's allure, its remoteness, was turned against it that night. At over 8,000 feet on the Kaibab Plateau, the region relies on just one paved road reaching toward the distant outpost of Jacob Lake, 50 miles away. While this isolation appeals to visitors seeking solitude, it makes the area especially susceptible to wildfires and difficult to reach with resources in a crisis. Adding to the complexity, the plateau's ponderosa pine forests evolved to need regular, low-intensity burns to stay healthy. But for much of the 1900s, federal policy focused on total fire suppression, ironically increasing the risk of catastrophic blazes. In recent decades, park managers have tried to mimic natural processes through controlled burns and by occasionally letting lightning spark wildfires run their course under supervision. This approach worked in July 2022 when a similar fire was tightly managed and grew to only 1,300 acres before being subdued. Yet, as history shows, the strategy can fail. In June 2006, wild winds turned another attempt at managed fire into a disaster, trapping hundreds of visitors behind a wall of flames. Only the ingenuity of law enforcement, leading evacuees along twisting dirt tracks, averted tragedy then. As debate rages over the current disaster, longtime Grand Canyon Emergency Services Chief Ken Phillips says letting the Dragon Bravo fire burn was a costly error. "We were fortunate lives weren't lost, but there's a pattern of managed wildfires escaping control here," he notes, emphasizing that earlier tragedies should have served as a warning. Yet controversy deepens. Park spokesperson Rachel Politz has publicly defended the initial fire management, arguing that, despite lost infrastructure, hundreds of lives were protected thanks to a professional response, even contradicting firefighters' claims that they'd been placed in peril. Does this explanation downplay legitimate risks, or does it reflect a tough but necessary trade-off? The damage goes far beyond lost buildings. The Grand Canyon Lodge, built in 1936, wasn't just a structure. Its stonework reflected local limestone, and its great room offered guests legendary canyon vistas. Only fragments, 2 Adirondack chairs and the enduring stone walls, remain from what many describe as an idyllic, open retreat cherished by generations. "The loss is staggering," said Catherine Leonard, Arizona State Historic Preservation Officer. "The craftsmanship can't be replicated." Still, she hopes some elements can survive, perhaps inspiring a new structure that honors the lost lodge rather than replicating it. Longer-term impacts loom as well. The region burning atop the Kaibab,